Hello and welcome to another edition of Low Code Cafe. This is episode 90 for April 27, 2022. We're continuing in part 4 of our series about dashboards, and today we'll continue to build out the health check dashboard and have some data drill downs. Patrick is going to be doing that for us. So before we do that, though, let me introduce myself. My name is Dale Warner. I'm head of support for Plantain App. This is a weekly event that we do, mostly technical for our community, and you'll see a lot of demos, some hands-on coding for the biggest part. We'll talk about some things that are going on in support as well. We record all these episodes, and so there are lots of great content already out there on YouTube. It's youtube.com/plantainapp. You can see that. You can use that QR code to get to it. But we advise you to subscribe and set an alert so you know when we post new episodes. Today, our agenda will be, I'll be showing you some things from the support channel, and then the biggest part of this we'll give to Patrick to do low code development on our dashboard. With that, first thing I wanted to announce that we have previously released 2 hotfixes. There are 3 additional out there for version 1.20, and you can see those on the configuration updates page. Those 3 are, one, there was an issue with Firefox and creating new tokens, and you were being redirected to the wrong page and token wasn't being created. So that's fixed. If you happen to use Firefox, you'll want to install that hotfix. Another one, we didn't rename the Bootstrap 5 from experimental to standard on our tabs module. So now you'll see that is now the standard, and Bootstrap 3 will be marked obsolete. So that's mostly cosmetic. And then some users were, if you use dynamic fields, the bind expression show characteristic wasn't working on Bootstrap 5, and we fixed that as well. So a few useful hotfixes that if they apply to you, you should install. If not, don't worry about it. You'll get it when you upgrade to version 1.20. Also included with version 1.20, there was an issue for people who were trying to use the Microsoft Dynamics CRM integration, and that was fixed at 1.20 as well. So if that issue applies to you and you haven't installed 1.20 yet, that's the place where it gets fixed. As a technical topic today from the support team, I wanted to just discuss a little bit the difference between the way rows are selected from our legacy view versus the new Bootstrap 5 data table and card view. So I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes on that. What I have here is just a listing of users, and it's just a starting spot. There's no buttons, there's no row selection. And I am going to open the management of this in a new tab so I can easily flip back and forth. So we are using the legacy view, the Bootstrap 3 view, and under that older setup, if you just the act of adding a button, let's say we're going to create a notify button, just the act of adding a button will add the ability to select records. We have this new feature that came in the last couple of versions called Enable Selection, but under Bootstrap 3, you don't even need to check that. If we just click Save and refresh the screen, the row selection comes into play. So if you click on a row, it highlights the row, and you can select as many as you want. Just for people who haven't used this kind of feature before, the root button allows you to select rows and then operate on them. So there's a spot where you can put in actions that happen at first, and then actions that happen for each row, and then a set of final actions. So a typical use for this might be that you would, for every row, you would add an email to send a notification to that user. And then as a final action, perhaps you redirect to a different page, something like that. So that's how that feature would be used, and just the act of putting that on there enables the ability to select rows. Now, under this, there were some problems with the way that this row selection would work. Among them, the fact that if your mouse happened to be over a field and you click, it doesn't highlight, versus if you click over here, it does. So row selection was a little bit challenging. We've done some videos in the past about how to add a checkbox to this, but all this is cleaned up a great deal in Bootstrap 5. So when we go to, I'm going to go to our views, and instead of legacy view, I'm going to turn on both card view and data table view and save that. Again, we haven't enabled row selection yet. So now notice that hovering and clicking doesn't do anything. You can't select unless you use this new feature, enable selection. So on your button, if you want to enable selection, you would come in and choose enable selection. And then you get some additional options, whether or not it requires a selection for the button to be operational, and whether or not you show the count. Both of those are defaulted, and I'm just going to accept the defaults. So now when we refresh this listing, we get a checkbox on the left. So row selection is no longer handled by hovering and clicking. It's a very definitive, you've got a checkbox, and you check it, and it clearly indicates what rows are selected. So that is a change of behavior, and under Bootstrap 5, there is no way to achieve that other functionality that you saw under Bootstrap 3. You now have a checkbox, and it's very clear. Notice that I've also activated the card view. So if we go to card view, we have the same records checked, and that's instead of, I don't remember how it was done under Bootstrap 3, but again, now we have this very clear checkbox that you can use. So because that's a little bit of change of functionality as you convert into the new data table and card views, you'll see this, you'll want to use the enable selection, and just the row selection is going to be indicated by a checkbox. Okay. Moving on from that, I just wanted to remind you, or let you know if you don't know, that we do a separate event every Friday, this same hour. It's called Campfire, Low Code Campfire, and the format is more interactive, and so we invite you to engage with us at Campfire the same hour. The link to that I'll put up in a second. Actually, here we go. These are the links for this episode, and and I'll put that on the chat right now. And so you can register in advance for Low Code Campfire and participate with us on the community portal. And then we really appreciate if you would give us any feedback, what kind of things you'd like to see in this event, or what you liked or didn't like about it. The feedback form is very useful to us. With that, I am going to turn over the majority of this session to Mr. Patrick, if you're ready to go. Oh, and while Patrick is getting loaded up, I see a question from Jim about whether the selection checkbox can be moved to a different column in the grid. And currently, no, it's a left-hand side item. And if you have thoughts about that, what it needs to be, if it needs to be different, or how you might use that differently, Jim, I encourage you to let us know, or maybe we can touch base on Campfire on Friday. So good. Patrick, thank you for jumping in. Carry on.
Hi. All righty. Let me share my screen out here. And okay, so hopefully some of you on the call were on the call when we first started doing the dashboard, which Dale has built upon over the last 2 episodes. And today we're going to go back to that the dashboard page, and let me just real quick give you a little reminder of that. So this was the page we had created before, and we're going to enhance this some, and it's going to be a somewhat limited enhancement, but I think you'll see how you can build upon what we do during this episode. So the goal that we have today is that we want to create a drill down for the total questions last 7 days statistic, and we're going to list out those questions that were input over the last 7 days, and then show the current answers for them as well. And we'll be able to link directly to the community page for the question. So so going back here, so this tile right here is going to become interactive. We're going to be able to click it, and then we're going to see a list of the questions that were put in for the last 7 days. Let me go back over to my previous screen and get started here. So in order to do this, you may recall from the previous episode when we talked about getting the questions that we had to do a new API on the community site. So we need to do the same thing to get the answers. So I've already actually done this. I wanted to do it ahead of time since I'm working on a live site here. I don't want to, I want to make sure everything's working right on the live site. It's different with the other site I'm working with because that's not something live. But here I've already cloned the answers API. So as you all know, or if you don't, when we create entities in PlantNapp, APIs are created automatically. So we have an answers entity on the community site, and it comes with an answers API that allows us to create an API. And I just had two different things I wanted to do with it, so I cloned it because they get replaced when you make changes to the entity. So what I've done here, I've added a where clause. We did this before with the questions entity as well, so that I can filter the answers that are being returned. And I get the answers back, and I'm using the where clause right here, using the read all answers. The read all answers, which is an action that's created for every entity, and you can filter it with a where clause. And so I'm just passing in the where clause there, and then the other change I needed to make was I needed to make sure I specified the allowed domains for the security. So that was another change I made to the API. So this is done already. So now going back here, I have my answers API all set up. So now I'm going to kind of build this backwards. So we're going to get to the dashboard last. You can see down here I have added new template to dashboard to load the questions. So we're going to build this backwards. And so I'm going to start with a grid that's going to display my answers. So let me switch over to this screen here. And so the first thing I'm going to do is go over to the configuration for my site here, and I'm going to, I've already navigated to the community stats page, but let me just go ahead and go back to the site root so you can see me doing that. So here I am at the site root showing all the pages, and I'm going to go to the community stats page, and here I'll create a new page. And I'm going to call this answers grid. I'm going to call it answers listing. Let's talk about that. Just thinking about that for a second. I'll stick with the grid because that's how I did it before, and I'll probably be copying and pasting some things. So I'll stick with the with the page name I had already, and do that. And I'm going to make this available for all users to see because we're making this page public. And I'm going to give edit permissions to the low-code engineer role so that, because I'm working in a low-code engineer role right now on the site. And we'll click save there. And so now we have the answers grid page there, and I'm going to navigate to it. And so here, now I want to add a grid to the page. So I'll do that. And I'm going to choose Action Grid. And I'm going to place it right up at the top of the page here and go into Manage. And we're going to start from scratch. And now the data source, this is going to be a little bit different for hopefully most of you. Maybe some of you have used this, but I'm actually going to, the data source for this grid is going to be a server request. So I'll go to use the server request source. And now I'm going to build out my server request to get the answers. So I'm going to go to get here. That is the option I want. And I'm going to pass in the parameters. Now you'll see that I'm giving it the row limit is one of the requirements there, and I'm just choosing 100. If I thought I was going to exceed that, then I could up that number there, but I think that's plenty for the purposes here. And oh, this is interesting. Oh yes. Yes. Okay. So this is my where clause. Yep. Where equals, and then so this is the, I'm sorry, I got myself confused a little bit there for a second when I saw this, but I'm kind of just chuckling at myself for, but so basically this is the parameter for the server request, and this is the clause that's being passed in. So the question equals, and we're passing in to the grid when we load it to this parameter for question. And I'm putting in a default value here, because if I don't put in a default value here, this is going to error and I won't be able to save my my data source. So I just picked one that was that I know exists and is somewhat recent. So most of the questions that I'm going to be loading are going to be after 1790. So that's the only reason I chose 1790 is because I saw that it was a recent number. There's no magic to that. I just wanted to make sure I had something in there. Okay, so the ID is going to be, of course, ID. And of course, we have to put in the authorization. And hopefully, let me make sure I copy that. Hopefully, most of you remember doing the server request from a few episodes ago. So I'm going to put in the bearer token, and that was covered, how this bearer token is created was covered in episode 87, I think it was. And but basically I'm passing in a username and password to get the bearer token, and then and the bearer token has to be preceded by a bearer and a space. So that's what we have here.
So that's standard JWT security. You haven't done the URL yet. You do that, right?
That would really, really help if I did that. No question. Okay, so the request URL is going to be the API that I was just showing you, answers with filter. Okay, so there we go. We have our request there, so I'll save that. And so now I'm going to make sure I add some fields here. So we're going to add in the body, which is the text of the answer, and we'll put in the ID. Some of this is going to be hidden eventually. I'm going to leave some of these out. I'm going to put in the author name and the author email and the created date. I think that's all I'm going to put in here for now. That's all I need for what I'm going to be accomplishing today. So I'm going to add all those to the grid, so we have that information there. Now, I'll go ahead and do this now since we're in here. I'm going to add a computed field, and we'll get into these details of why I'm why I'm doing this once I show you, but I'm going to put in a header template. So I'm going to be creating kind of a, instead of just listing the data, I'm going to be creating kind of a little bit of a template. So we're going to call this header template. And we're going to deselect all these. Actually, this isn't totally necessary, but you'll see that that deselecting these when I choose to show this in my template, you'll see that it'll still show. So now I already have a template created, and I'm going to paste that in here. It's pretty simple. It's just showing the created date and the author name. And this is really the same styling. I got this styling from the community website so that we could just have a little bit of consistency there. Okay, and yes.
Do you need the allow HTML in that one?
Yep, certainly do.
And just out of curiosity, are we going to do something with the email, author email? I ask only from a security standpoint.
The only reason I would potentially use this, and that's why it's here, and I don't think we'll get to that today, but if eventually what I want to be able to do is for well, actually we don't need it for that either, but maybe I don't need it, but I'm not going to display it. I'm certainly not going to display it. So but I did have a I think I'll, since you're saying that, I think I'll go ahead and remove it, and if I end up needing it, then I can always add it back, but I'll go ahead and remove it for now. I agree with that. I'm going to move my header template up here so it's easy to get to, and I think that was it there. So okay, let me just scroll through here. Okay, and I'm going to go to the Views tab here, and I'm actually going to turn off the data table view, and I'm going to turn on the card view. And so now I expand this, and this is how I'm going to start defining what my card's going to look like. And you'll see that I got to save this first. Let me go ahead and save this. And just boot here. And go back to my views and expand this. And so now I'm going to choose the header template that I created as the title field. And for the description field, I'm going to choose the body, which is the text of the answer. Okay. And for the columns, I'm going to just do one column. So I'm using a card, but I'm going to just have one column of cards on any kind of device. And now for the final thing I need to do is I'm going to switch to the settings tab, and I need to scroll down to the UI settings, and this is actually we're never actually going to navigate to this page. It just exists so that I can have the grid that I will be loading on the community stats page. And so I'm going to check the embed option here, and I'm going to put this on my clipboard, this code for embedding this grid on somewhere else. Okay. And I think I'm done there now. Let me go ahead and save this and click back, and I should be getting, oh, there I forgot something there. So let me edit that again. And let me also name the grid too. I don't like having the default name there, so.
Let's see.
Call that answers grid, and for the body, I need to make sure I'm allowing HTML so that we can see the formatted text of the answer.
And for those of us who are English majors, could you put a W in the answers grid?
Yeah, sure. It won't break anything, but it would be nicer for it to be spelled correctly.
Being heckled, yeah.
Anytime. Okay, let me save that now and reload the page again. Let's see where we stand. Okay, so we're looking good now. Okay, so now let me just give myself a little check here and go back to the slide and see where we are now. So we've gotten to the, we've done that, we've added a child page, and we're using the server request data source, and we are setting this so it can be embedded. So now we're going to go to the community stats page, and we're going to add a listing to the community stats page to load the questions. So let me navigate back to my other browser and go back to the community stats page. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in edit mode. Let me click that one more time there. Now we're in edit mode and choose to add a module here. And I'm going to add an action grid. And I'm going to put that right below the existing grid and go into manage grid. Okay, so once again, from scratch is what I'm going to choose here. And once again, I'm going to choose the JSON server request data source. And let me do a little check here on my my inspiration site. Okay, so now I need to specify the request URL, of course, because that's what I almost forgot last time. So we'll do that first. So now we're getting to the, we're going to be pulling in the questions. This is going to be a GET, and the body of the request is once again has a token in it. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing a basic date add where the created date is greater than, and I'm passing in a parameter called days, but I'm doing a default of 7. And so I won't need to pass a parameter to it for our purposes today, because you know, that's what I'm looking at, is the past 7 days. But I'm arranging this so that I can, this grid can have flexibility for me to add other parameters as far as the number of days I want to go back in the future. So we have that there. And then the ID is the ID. And of course, then I need to also add the authorization. So expand custom header here, same thing as before.
So this is the grid that's going to respond to the, when you click the.
Yes, so this is what we're going to see when I click the tile in the dashboard. This is the grid that we're going to have come up. All right, so I think I have my data source set up right. Let me just do a double check here. I got my URL and my request body and method, the ID property, and my authorization, passing the bearer token to community website for me to get the data. Okay, so I'll save that. And of course, that puts us into deciding what data we're going to have on here. So let me click Add Fields. And I want to pull in the title, body. Actually, I don't think I'm using feature, but I have it. So let me just go ahead and put it there. It's not, doesn't hurt for it to be there. Let me just check here and see. Yeah, it doesn't have to be there, but I'm going to go ahead and pull that in as well. And I think that is all I need. Just double checking. Let me go ahead and put created date there too. Okay, so let me add those. And now I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to add a computed field. So let me add a computed field here. And I'll go ahead and I'm just calling it display. It doesn't really this doesn't really matter what I'm going to call it, but I'm going to use display. Although I am, actually, let me call it question. That'll work better for my purposes here, because I am actually not using the card view here, and you'll see what I'm doing here. I'm just going to I'm going to do a display that kind of looks like a card, but I'm not using the card view. Okay, and now technically, I think that I could probably maybe just leave these off, but it's not what I did in my testing, so I'm going to go ahead and stick with what I did in my testing here. I'm just turning these off so that we don't actually see these. And all right, did that one. And so everything's just going to show in my template.
Yep,
Okay.
so they're available to use, but
yes.
Yep.
The and what I was saying technically, I think that my template can still pull data without these being here, but if I wanted to do something like export the data or something like that, I would definitely want to have them here. So I don't have an export button, but it's good to just have the fields here. So I kind of like to tend to err on the side of having the data in the grid. So that's what I'm doing.
Another nice reason is both for searchable and filterable. You can make you can create filters out of them.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Right. Exactly. Okay, so let's take a look at my template here. So you can see that I'm linking the title of this to directly to the community website. And so that's a hard-coded link to the community website there, and I'm using the question ID that I'm for the specific question that's coming in.
So that'll
and then
navigate over to the community if they want to see it in the actual site.
Yes, exactly. There's a little bit of styling in here, and this is, once again, I'm just using some Font Awesome icons here, similar to what's being done on the community website, and putting an HR here, and then putting the text of the answer there. All right, so let me just scroll down and see if there's any other things here I need to make sure I get. So that's
HTML.
What's that?
Allow
yes, the allow
HTML.
HTML. Thank you. That's definitely a good one there. Okay, so we are where we need to be there. I'll go ahead and drag this to the top just to have it in the right place. And now I want to go to, next we're going to go to the buttons. And I'm going to add a button, and I'm going to call it answers. And we will, actually, I think I will turn off the automatic, and we'll get this out of there. So we're just going to have an icon button, and I'll put help text here. And I think I'll make it the styling is success, and I'm going to do a check mark. I just scrolled down a little bit too far. There we go. We'll use this one here. And then for the actions, I'm going to do a custom detail view. So I'm going to type just detail view. And just to, I know that we've been kind of like, hitting you over the head with all the changes recently, and I just wanted to, I saw that, and I wanted to make sure we talked about it one more time. So the difference between the custom detail view and the detail view is something that is automatically built for you. And on the fields that are being loaded, you notice there was an option that to show for detail view only. So the detail view is built for you automatically based on the data that's in the grid. And if you you can not show things in the main grid, but if you have detail view only, then it'll show in your automatically created detail view. I'm doing the custom detail view, of course, because I'm doing something a little bit more complex. So having said that, we'll move along to configuring this. So there's a few display modes now. You may recall that we used to have just one way of doing a detail view. Now we can do a detail view in a modal, something that expands from the left sidebar or the right sidebar. I'm going to stick with the inline, which is what we had previously. And get my template here. So I think do a Windows V here, and I think we're going to go all the way back to here. That should be, oh, I didn't, there we go. So let me get rid of that. So this is the script that I copied earlier. So it's loading the grid, the answers grid. Now, I need to pass a parameter to the answers grid to make sure I'm getting the answers that are associated with the question I'm looking at. So I'm going to put in here question equals, and I'm just passing the ID of the record that I'm on. So I'll put ID, and close that token, and then add an ampersand. So pulling up that grid that we created earlier, using the embed script that we copied directly from the settings of that other grid, and simply just going into the code that's there and adding an extra parameter here, question equals ID, which will filter the grid when it loads in the detail view for each question, filter it for the answers that belong to that question. Okay, anything you think I should check here, Dale, since you're keeping me in line today?
No, just making sure I understand. This is the detail view that's so you're gonna see a list of questions. You click the detail view button that's gonna go load this dynamic grid that's gonna do a server request and go get the answers.
Correct. Yep.
Where we are. Yep. Okay.
Cool. Okay, and then I'm also going to add a root button. So the buttons, the pop-up when I eventually call this from the dashboard will have an X to close it, but I like to just put in another way for people to close a pop-up. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to put in I'm going to call it close listing, and we'll have it at the top, and let's put it on the right hand side, and we'll make it a primary button. And all it's going to do is go to the actions here, and we're just going to hide listing and stop execution. So I'm going to select the one that I'm working on now, which I have not named correctly yet. So I'm going to do that before I save, but it doesn't matter. It's really looking at the ID here, so it doesn't matter that it's not named correctly yet. So basically, this will just close this grid when you click the button. So it's just an alternate way of closing it, because of course, like I said, it does already have the X. And call this the question listing. So go to views. We're going to keep the data table view, and I want to go to settings. And there's just a few things I want to do here. I'm going to keep it initially visible, because we're going to just do a quick test on it before I make it so we can see that it's working before I work on the dashboard itself. So I'm not going to go to that yet, but I did want to scroll down, and I'm going to go to the advanced UI settings. And this is earlier where you saw me embed, but I'm not doing that option this time. What I am doing here though is adding some styles that are going to be used in the grid. So this is just a place where I can put some stuff that that can be accessed. So it's just a little bit of styling that we'll be able to see. Now I do want to make sure that this is 444. So let me just make sure I update this because it's specifically addressing.
So if you hadn't done this, the data would show. You're trying to make it.
Yeah, it would all be fine. It would just, I wouldn't have the styling that I want. That's all. Yep. And so that's all I'm doing here is just adding a little bit of styling to the grid. Okay. And I think that covers it. So let me go ahead and save this. Go back and take a look. Okay, so we are getting our data here. Let me check and see if there we go. So that's good. We're getting the question that's in the system here, and we're getting Dale's answer here, and then we're getting we're seeing a reply from Alex here. So that's excellent. We're getting what we wanted here. So we have that in place now. I think maybe something else I did is I turned off this. Let me just go ahead and do that because I don't really want the
no need to search in there.
Yeah, right. So let me just do a little bit of settings change here. I'm going to take the display title out of there because it's already apparent what we're looking at. I'm going to take the search out, and I don't really need the filters either. Maybe in the future we might decide that we do want some filters in there, but I'm going to take the filters out as well for now. So let me save that and just do a little refresh. Take a look at it again. Okay, yep, so we are showing what we want here. Oh, and actually, so I did that here, but I didn't do it on the answers grid, so I do need to do that there as well. That's the other thing that I wanted to do. I got a little confused there, but it doesn't hurt to have those settings on both of them as well. So let's go to the answers grid. Go to settings and turn off the display title and the search and the filters. Save that. Go back to the initial page. I didn't really need to reload it because it'll automatically refresh when I load the answers, but there we go. So now I have just seeing the answers for the question. Excellent. Okay, so we are all set here to pull in this data into the dashboard template. So to do that, there's a couple things I need to do. The very first thing is I'm going to go in here and open the dashboard settings and expand the templates. And I'm going to clone the default template. So hit that button to clone it. And I'm going to call it, let me just look in here. I guess I called it interactive com stats is what I've already determined. So I'm going to keep that. And not a bad idea for me to just also not required, but just to say what it's going to do. So this is a template specifically for the community statistics dashboard. This is pretty important. Actually, I might even added just a note here saying only used for this page. The reason for that is that I'm going to make some very specific changes that really wouldn't apply. So this template really wouldn't apply for use elsewhere. So that's why I'm putting that note in there. I'm going to change the cursor style so that we can see that we actually have some interactivity here. And for initially, I'm only going to be changing the card for one of these, but the idea is that eventually we would have interactive cards, more interactive cards. But I'm just going to change the card for one of these. So let me go ahead and go to card 2. See if I didn't get it. So let me just go back here. Copy this. And so actually I don't need that. All I need is the on click because I'm setting my cursor up here with the styling here. Now I copied this, so I need to make sure I have the right module ID here. So let me just save this and we'll come right back in here. So we have interactive com stats. Let me go over here. And question listing is 444. I should have remembered that. Go back to the dashboard. And select this one. I want to edit it. I do need to select it also, but I want to edit it and change my.
Just adding a little, just this on click is going to say this card will run this little bit of JavaScript.
Yep, exactly.
Open or pop up.
Now, I just realized that I didn't do a step that I should have done before I got to this point. That's okay. We can save this template like this, but now I need to make sure I go over here to the question listing and change the setting here to, because remember I said earlier I wanted to check to make sure it was working the way I wanted it to, but now is when I need to actually make it open in a pop-up. And then you can see that I get this. So this is where I can get that exact JavaScript call I need to make on the on click for the tile. But I've already put it in there, so we're going to go ahead and save this like that. Reload the page. And so now I have a cursor on my tile, and it opens, and I see that I have the questions I'm looking for here. And I can click the show answers, and I can see the answers for each question. So let me go back to our slide here, and it looks like I've accomplished just about everything I wanted to. Dale, do you have any thoughts on anything else that you think I missed here?
No, I don't think. I think you covered it. I think it'd probably be helpful now that you have the solution and you've built it back to front to just kind of run through it front to back, starting with the dash card and then.
Yeah. Okay. I can.
It's kind of a summary.
Yep. You take this page out of edit mode first, because I don't need it anymore. So now, so I told you I was building it backwards. So of course, by that I meant that to show you what's happening, I start here at the dashboard. But so of course the dashboard, I've created a new template by going into the dashboard settings here, and now we have this interactive com stats template, and I have made added the on click event that we just saw. And so I have that template in place, and what that's doing is calling up the new grid that, of course, remember earlier we were seeing it down here below this grid, but we're not seeing it there anymore. But that grid is this one here, the question listing. And the question listing is bringing in data from directly from the community website by server request. And then we are able to see the answers for each question by clicking the answers button that I created. And that answers button is loading a custom detail view for each question. And in the custom detail view, we're calling the script from the answers grid page. So as I'm doing this direction, I think it starts to become really clear why I had to build it backwards. We needed to start from the going all the way to the source. We need to start to make sure we had the API that we could call, and then add the answers grid first, because we didn't really have this to enter at all. So that's why I built everything. I built it the way I did. So this is the script that we got automatically when we created the answers grid and chose to embed it. And of course, I'm seeing the answers directly below the question because I'm choosing the inline option. So there's that, close here. And of course, those answers are being pulled in from the answers grid, which is the new page that I created earlier in the call. And that grid is, we have under the advanced UI settings, we are setting that to embed data. And this is where when you do the embed option, you are given the script right here that you can copy and paste. Of course, the only change I made on the questions grid was that I put in the parameter for the answers that I want to display. And once again, this data is coming from a server request.
Yep. All the data is being pulled dynamically when you click, but it doesn't. If you don't click, then it's not spending any resources to go get that information. And just for fun, you've configured, and I'm not asking you to change it now, but just kind of talk about if you wanted to configure another tile to be the current day. Instead of 7-day.
Yeah, actually, I don't see a reason why not to just try it. Of course, it might require somebody to go in and actually put in a question.
I'll get that taken care of.
So then what we can do is we just need to go in here and go to the dashboard, and then go into the template, and we'll edit this template. And I'm going to copy this on click. Make sure you get the quotation mark. We'll put that here. And I need to now just make sure, go here. And I'll go ahead and, because I think we have this, our spreadsheet of APIs is, that's something we've made public, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and, so you can see what I'm doing here. So just to make sure that I'm getting this right, I'm coming into our spreadsheet of our APIs, our JavaScript functions, and I'm finding the action grid, show grid API, and so this one has params. That's not the one I'm actually using, but let me just copy that one, because I think I'm using right now show grid. Let me just go back over there. And oh yeah, show grid pop-up, that is the one I'm using. So then the only difference is that I need to put the params afterwards. And so we don't have it specific on this line, but you can see examples elsewhere that the way the params are shown is they get put in squiggly brackets, and then the the name is in single quotes, and the value comes after a colon. So just wanted to point that out, that that's the way we need to put it in here. So now I'm going to go back to the here and comma, and our name for our parameter is question colon, and nope, that's not our parameter is, I need to go back and check to make sure I get it right. Easiest way, I think, is for me to duplicate this so I can come here and look at the question listing. And so what I want to confirm is that I'm passing the correct parameter, and it's days. Days is what I want to be passing. So go back over here. And we'll put 1 here. So yeah, and I'm noticing right away that there is a potential issue here, and in that it's going back 1 day, so that's not necessarily 2 day. I think I would need to change, in thinking about this a little bit more.
It would be 2. The other one was
Yeah.
-7, so does this need to be -2?
Yes, minus, yeah. So there's other ways I could do this, but for our purposes now, we'll just make it like this, just for illustration purposes. And I think that's done. We'll save that and reload the page and see what happens here. Okay, it looks like it did the same thing. So,
and actually, there's no. Can you refresh that and see if we didn't get? I did put a question in.
To reload the page, didn't I? Let's see.
So the idea is that you would connect. You would set it up to connect the.
Yeah.
Yep, so
we might be having some caching. It might be, but this is not working the way I expected it to. So I'd have to troubleshoot that some. But
cool.
Yeah.
Well, sorry for putting you on the spot, but
it's okay. It's always worth giving something a try. Yeah. If we don't have any questions, feel free to pop in with some questions if anybody has any.
And with that, while that's going on, it's entirely likely that we're going to do one more session on dashboards, talking about how to make things actionable. So make your dash cards actionable, click and get things done. And we just, not a question, but a comment. So thank you, Mark. We'd love to see a solution come together. So,
and thank you to Mark for your comment. Thank you.
So I'm going to grab, take on here, and we'll get to the end. Our happy low coding. We appreciate that you spent your last hour with us, and we will be here again next Wednesday with another episode of the Low Code Cafe. See you next week. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you.